Well, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're at. Um, this is Todd Kemp with WealthWave. And today we're going to be sharing a little bit about what is your plan E. So some of you may not even know what that is, and I'll be clarifying. We'll be talking about E to E, which is really a discussion about how one may go through the process of becoming an entrepreneur from being an employee. And we'll be talking about money. We'll be talking about our industry which is the money financial literacy industry as a way of becoming an entrepreneur. But before I get into really some questions and things to get us started, I'll just share a little bit about my own entrepreneurial journey and just my background. I grew up here in Illinois. My family is, my parents are all essentially very highly educated. All have master's degrees, middle class family. Parents were both my dad, my stepmother, my stepdad and my mom are both teachers. And my father was a salesman. Everyone had a job, essentially. I grew up with the mantra of, get good grades at school, go to a good college, graduate, get a nice job that has a pension. My parents being teachers, they didn't understand a world without a pension, and unfortunately, that's not a world that really exists anymore. But in college, I did go to college like a good boy. Went to University of Illinois, and at first I came in with the idea that I was going to be an attorney. I thought that pre-law was it for me, and then I found I was way too much reading. So I said probably not on that. At some point during my freshman year, I got a flyer under my dorm door that totally changed my life. Sounds kind of strange, but it said entrepreneurial development company, and a limited opportunity, guaranteed $4,000 of income over the summer job basically. And it said limited opportunity, so I promptly hid that from my roommate, who probably would have been interested anyway. But kind of interesting. I was not attracted to the entrepreneurial side. I was kind of almost an entrepreneur by accident, because what I was really attracted to was what $4,000 guaranteed. So that really appealed more to my fear-based, employee-driven, what my parents told me, to get the best paying job right after school. And the previous summer, I worked at Menards for 4 months, and I only made $2,000. So I figured, well, that's 100% growth from last summer's job. What could go wrong? So I went and interviewed, and lo and behold, that first summer I was an entrepreneur. I found out that $4,000 guarantee was kind of not very guaranteed. I had to find my own paint job. It was a painting business. It was a house painting business. And they figured if you could teach a college kid how to paint and hire a bunch of your friends from high school to do the same, then it's a good learning experience for how to build a business. And I had to go in people's houses and sell paint jobs and hire crews and produce the jobs and collect the checks and do all that. And I worked for about 100 hours a week. I had no life during the summer. And guess what? I was still not profitable after 2.5 months of summer of doing that kind of work. And so I'm thinking this isn't going to work out. Well, in the last 3 weeks, everything came together, and I made about $10,000. So I made about 2.5 times what the guarantee was in just the last few weeks. Totally relieved to get back to college after that. But the company offered me a position to be more of a company role, like a W-2. So I had an experience to be an entrepreneur. And then I kind of went and said, all right, well, what does this look like? Well, you're gonna recruit people to do the same thing that you just did, give me an expense account, which I had, and you could train and develop a business. And I did that for the rest of my college career. By the end of it, I think we painted 500 houses my last summer in 3 different states. About $500,000 of paint jobs. And I'm only saying that because what I realized in that experience is that I had the expense account, and I wasn't the person with who is out there taking the risk necessarily. But I was also doing a lot of the work in terms of production for the company. The company didn't really help very much. And so of that $500,000, I only made about 15,000. And the company made about 150,000 because that's how much the royalty was. So I also learned at a relatively young age in my early 20s that this is how it is to be an employee, is working really hard, doing a lot of the work and making someone else's dreams come true. The owner of that company was profiting mightily by my efforts. And so I was just not really knowing what I wanted to do after college. All my friends were getting great jobs. It was 1998. So this is right before the dot-com crash. So still great jobs out there. And one of my fraternity brothers turned me on to this business we're in now, the financial literacy business. And I learned some things that I had not learned in 5 years. I like college so much. I took 5 years. 5 years of college. I didn't learn, and I went to all those finance classes. I didn't do very well in them, but maybe that's why. But basic truths about how money works that totally escaped my college experience and understanding. And I was blown away by the need that this industry presented at that moment. And I never went and interviewed at one job after this, except for starting this business. And I've been here ever since. Met my wife here. We have a business together that is fantastic, and our children are raised in it as well. And it wasn't an easy journey, but it's worth it. And so that's a little bit of my journey from kind of entrepreneur, being an accidental entrepreneur, to being an employee, and back to being an entrepreneur after I realized really what I wanted in my life. And so here's a couple of warm-up questions for you to consider. And this is, someone asked me these questions too when I first came here, is what are areas that you want to have more freedom or control in your life? For me, one of the main things that stood out was doing something meaningful. I think that my painting business was meaningful to an extent in terms of learning how to a lot of the disciplines of being an entrepreneur and just cutting my teeth in that field. But the end result is someone had paint on their house that didn't have it before. I wanted to do something that I could really impact a family to a greater degree, and I found that here. Who I decided to work with was important. I think a lot of people would agree that your time, right? Not being on someone else's clock, having someone else looking over your shoulder, being responsible for who you are, what you do, what value you bring to the table. All those are important. And also, what are your whys, right? What's the reason why you would give up, let's say, being comfortable for something that you could put yourself at risk in some way, right? And so why would you do that? Well, is it usually a person or a thing or both, right? So who would you fight for? Who at that time at 22 years old, I'm not going to lie, it was me. And so it says no judging if it's yourself. It was me I wanted to fight for. I wanted to prove that, hey, mom, dad, I know you're not like thrilled that I went to U of I for 5 years, got a degree, and didn't go to the corporate America route that you had envisioned for me. So they weren't too happy at first, but I wanted to prove to them that I could be the first entrepreneur in our family. And then also, I wanted to do something where we had a good life. Certainly being a middle class family, didn't want for anything, but to become great, I hear that doing it from the middle class is one of the hardest places to ascend from, because you don't have a tremendous amount of examples of people who are world-class thinkers around you, but you also don't have you don't have such a bad experience in your life that you do anything to break out of it, because you're kind of like in a safety zone in a way. And I wanted to do something beyond what that was for my experience growing up. And by the way, I'm very thankful for all the advantages I've had in my life, and to allow me to get to a point where, hey, I could be that person in our family. Another way to look at this is, just looking at these two quotes, right? The one on the left here: if you don't build your dream, someone else will hire you to build theirs, which kind of was my experience for 4 years at that company as a junior executive, they called me. And the one on the right is: the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. So, 9 out of 10, actually 91% of Americans would have the statement on the left there be what it hits you harder, because 9 out of 10 Americans are employees somewhere. The one on the right is probably the 1 out of 10, right? That's the people who want to take a stand out and do something that is maybe a bit uncomfortable, but allows for a lot more of the freedoms we've kind of discussed. So our company, why did I come here to fulfill that? Well, WealthWave really does two things. Number one, we teach people how money works, and I'm going to make a case that this is an industry that is in sore need of change, and usually our industry will only focus on families who have in excess of $1 million of net worth. That's by design. And unfortunately, most people don't have over $1 million, but need the help. They need the help more, in fact. And so our business model really lends itself to helping middle class families like my own. And thankfully, I was able to help my own family and make a big difference for what they have. And no one else really in the financial industry, I think, was motivated to do so. And it starts with education. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But money can change everything for people. The second there is E to E, which is making the move from employee to entrepreneur. The numbers are kind of staggering. 62% of people who are surveyed would prefer, if they had a mentor, if they had a system to follow, if they had some kind of a way to be an entrepreneur, they would do it where it didn't involve a ton of risk or money or cash outlay. They would be an entrepreneur. So it's a huge need for people. And I think that if people can learn how to become an entrepreneur in a safe way. Look, we're one of the only companies in the whole industry that will allow people to partner with us on a part-time basis. Why is that significant? Well, it opens up the labor pool to really everyone who can be a part of this industry. And once we learn some basic things that you can run on a track, you could be very successful within our business. And there's a huge need for what we're doing, as I mentioned, but there's also a big vacuum that's being left by what they told me when I first came in the business is, hey, all these baby boomers are going to be retiring. And as 10,000 people are hitting age 65 every single day. Well, the same thing is happening to financial advisors. And in the next decade, 40% of the current financial advisors will be gone. They'll be retired, and they're not being replaced nearly as quickly as they're leaving. So it's leaving a vacuum or a void to be filled by entrepreneurial-minded folks who see some value in what we're talking about here. Now, some of the things that you have to understand anytime you become an entrepreneur, and this is anything, any kind of business, right? Are the risks involved, and what keeps people usually not pursuing that entrepreneurial dream, who would be in that 62% of people, It's usually, well, it's a high startup cost. There's no system or process. I got to develop everything myself. Maybe I'm not that creative of a person. I don't have the cash to be able to pay for the technology. What if I don't have any business? No one wants to buy what I'm doing, or worse, in some cases, too many people want to buy what you're doing. You don't have the infrastructure to handle the influx, right? Having enough cash flow, being able to pay our bills, any kind of legal issues. All these are typically risks that keep people from pursuing that entrepreneurial dream. And what I'm saying here is that we've mitigated quite a bit of that with our process, which I'll lay out here briefly. So the reality is, though, we have to always remember the most rewarding success will also be the most painful to earn. Ever hear that easy come, easy go, right? That's a saying for a reason. Because if you want something that's truly valuable, it's got to be a heavy lift. It's got to be something that took something to get here. I think about, this might be a weird example, but my kids. I look at my kids and what it took for my wife to bring those two into the world, right? Not easy. In fact, like, I remember right afterwards, just looking at my wife and loving her more in that moment than at any other time. Like, oh my God, you just did that. Now, guess what? If it was just handed to you and it was just so easy to be a parent, maybe it wouldn't be as rewarding as well. And so that's maybe an extreme example, but we're talking about extreme important things here too, which is becoming an entrepreneur. So you also have to figure out what industry you want to be part of. And, I have my bias with this particular one, but where are you going to build your dream business? Who are going to be your clients, right? What's your biggest differentiator? What makes you so special compared to competition out there? What kind of products and solutions? There was a Simon Sinek said in his book, Start With Why, is the biggest thing to become an entrepreneur is a successful one is just solving a big problem. The people who can solve a big problem are the ones that will be successful as an entrepreneur. So, and then what about your abilities and talents? Can you learn what you need to be successful as well? So, as I mentioned, my bias, I like the financial industry because it's huge. If you added real estate, retail, and technology all together and multiplied it times about 3, that's where you land on the financial industry size of $151 trillion. So anytime there's that much money, there's a lot of opportunity. And what I also know is that if you look at every big building downtown, most of them are financial companies, or everything comes through the financial industry. So the problem is that Wall Street doesn't usually make its way down to Main Street too often. So we just want to bring the power of the financial industry to the average folk out there, right? And it's self-evident the need. 5 billion people around the world are considered to be financially illiterate. So it's the number one crisis in the world. And how is that number determined? There was a survey done, 5 simple questions that our parent company Aegon went out and asked, very basic financial questions. And 2/3 of the world, including Americans, could not answer 2 of the 5 questions correctly. So that's a big problem. And so it has to start with that. And the financial literacy, the thing I like about from a business standpoint, it's not a fad. It's something that is timeless and ageless. Everyone needs money, last I checked. And unfortunately, few people actually have the money or the literacy, right? So it's something, if you can have a solution for people to understand how money works truly for themselves, then we can actually make a big impact. And I'm not going to go through a ton of this today. There's other classes we can go over these 7 money milestones, but we have a path for people to follow step by step. It starts with financial education, which is the first step, but having proper protection, having an emergency fund, building, getting out of high interest debt, having a plan for cash flow, making more money, cutting down on expenses, realizing what our wants versus our needs are, maybe focusing more on the needs first, right? Instead of the instant gratification society that we are all part of, the microwave society. We all want to put a steak in the microwave and have it taste good. Sometimes all those are just disciplines we have to learn. Building wealth, having our dollars work harder for us than even we can down the road. And one day you have something that you've built that you want to protect and keep in the family and have it go to the right people that you care about. So, but what I can sum up with this one page is if you follow this path, you'll probably have what you really want, which is a work optional lifestyle. I think almost every single person, if I asked 10 people if you'd like to have the option to work where finances don't dictate to you that you have to work, but you could choose to work because you believe in what you're doing or you want to be relevant in people's lives. I think every one of those 10 people would say, yes, I'd like that. Well, money can do that for you. And certainly money that's produced by a business that you own, I think is maybe the fastest way to get that to happen. And so what does that look like? What is a work optional lifestyle look like? Well, it comes down to this FIN, which is financial independence number. So here's one little secret that will drop on you here today. It's something called the rule of 25. Okay. And the rule of 25 just means that what your financial independence number equals your annual income, whatever that is, times 25. Okay. And when you work that out, what is SWR? It's safe withdrawal rate. So there's something in our industry called the 4% rule, which means that if you pull out roughly 4% of your retirement savings on an annual basis, you will not run out of money in retirement. Okay, you're likely not to run out of money. So that just means that whatever that is, you could just do the math. And that ARRI is annual retirement income. So for example, if your financial independence number, hey, I just need to make $50,000. I'm not going to have too lavish of a lifestyle once I am financially independent. Well, take that number, multiply it times 25. You're at $1.25 million. Okay, so now think about that, $1.25 million. Okay, all right. So 50 grand, would you consider that living high in the hog? Probably not, right? But is 1.25 million a lot more than what many people have? Yes. So it's just a reality check. How are you going to get there? Well, here's a simple rundown. Let's say if you're going to able to earn an 8% rate of return on your retirement investments. Okay. Well, that would what age would you have to start, and how much would you have to save to hit the million by 65? We're not even talking 1.25. We're talking about 1 million. That's like what, 40 grand a year. Okay. Not too great of a retirement. Well, if you're 20, good news for you is you have a lot of time. So you only have to save about $190 a month and you'll get there. Okay. And at your average income, it's only 8.29% of what you're making. Still a sacrifice. But as you go down, the longer you wait, procrastination actually has a cost. Okay. And you could see that your average monthly income when you're 50 years old, for example, is $4,300 out there a month. Well, you'd have to save $2,890 to be able to have $1 million in the next 15 years, which is just 66% of your income, right? So it's almost becomes impossible if you haven't started yet. I'm not saying it's impossible. It is possible, but you may need a little bit more fuel in the tank. You may need to actually get a little bit more income somehow, where you're not trading your time for money, because we all have a limited amount of time, right? And so and we'll touch on that in a second. But what have people we relied on in the past, in recent history, and even to some extent today, is this three-legged stool of retirement, which is pensions, right? Social Security and personal savings. So pensions, it used to be everyone had a pension. That's why my parents said, you should get a job with a pension, because they just figured every job has a pension. Except what do we know about pensions nowadays? Are they that prevalent? Do you see them out there that often? No. So we just cut one of those legs out for like 90% of people out there, right? Unless you work for the government, or you just end up, maybe some private corporation, some corporation out there maybe have private pensions, still not too often. Social Security is the second one. Now, I don't know if you guys know this out there, but $34 trillion is our federal deficit right now. As of now, without any changes in Social Security in the laws, by 2030, we're all going to be taking a 30% haircut on our Social Security benefits, every single person, including those who are already retired. So with politicians loving to kick the can down the proverbial road forever, is Social Security really going to be there the way we thought it was, or the way it was for our parents? Okay. And the last thing is personal savings. So if we just have maybe 1.5 of this three-legged stool, it really is now up to us. It's your personal responsibility if you want to have that work optional lifestyle. And so if you are blessed enough to have a job or a career that can get you there with just some of the financial vehicles available that we could certainly educate you about, wonderful. For the vast majority of people, they're going to be in significant financial trouble when it comes to the time where they either don't want to work anymore or aren't able to work, right? So where's the market now in terms of average amount that people have between 55 and 64 is about $408,000. And if you think about that, whether that's more than you have or less than you have, that would be about a 16 to 17,000, just rough math off the top of my head, $16,000, $17,000 a year income that would generate at this point. Certainly not the retirement that most people dream about, but it's still something that people need to manage because there's risks involved. There's different things they need to understand. If you're closer to needing the money, you can't afford to have a 2008 take away half of your money when you already don't have very much, right? So, but it's a big market. It's a huge market for us to help. And here's one of the plans, and this is very broad brushstrokes here, but just an idea. How do you avoid running out of money in retirement? So typically, and a lot of the big companies out there are going to just go take your money and invest it and say, good luck to you. Hopefully the market continues to perform like it has in the last 100 years, but if it doesn't, sorry. Or they're only going to talk to you if you have a couple $1 million anyway, so losing a few $100,000 isn't going to hurt you that much, okay? So in any kind of an equity investment, which is stocks, bonds, there's certainly the potential for your money to grow. But you could also have like a 2000, stock market crash because of the dot-com bubble or the Great Recession of 2008, where half your money is gone in a very short period of time. That's called downside risk. And so what we want to do is shift people into something called the RISE strategy, the concept where you can participate in upside returns of the market, of stocks and bonds, but eliminate or significantly decrease and mitigate the downside risk, especially when you need the money most. And if the worst case scenario happens, that everything crashes and goes to in the handbasket, well, how about having a guarantee of 5%, not 4%, but 5% a year for the rest of your life income that you can never outlive? And that's what a lot of folks, that kind of a plan is what a lot of people need out there. And how does that translate into income? So can you imagine, first of all, being able to sit across from someone and saying, you're good. You're never going to run out of money in your lifetime. This is what your retirement's going to look like. You and your family are taken care of for the rest of your life. And being able to look at someone dead in the eye and say that, how great of a feeling that is, and how empowering it is for them, and how grateful so many people are when you have that conversation. It just makes talking about doing something you believe in that creates a lot of meaning for you. Absolutely. But also it helps us as well as entrepreneurs, as people in this industry, because if I just help one family that has just 275,000, less than the average, right? 408 is the average. 275,000 in our target market. That's that's almost $11,000 that an associate would make helping a family do that. You just do one of those a month, you're making a 6-figure income right now. Well, that's already more than double what the average median salary is for men and women out there. And so what if you could only do that one time a year? Would an extra $10,000 or $11,000 make a big difference if your average income or median income is $57,000 or $47,000? I think it probably would, especially when we realize just in this last year, it's amazing how the media is saying that inflation's coming down. So, and in many cases, in ways it is, but it's weird how it's measured because in this 1 year, look at the difference in price of all these things. Now, when people don't understand is inflation's coming down, does that mean things are costing less? No, it just means that they're getting more expensive at a slower rate. That's all it means. So the price of these things has not come down since 2022. It's just that the rate of change has slowed down. But do you think people's incomes have increased to the same level as all these costs have gone up? And you could see there clearly that the real average hourly amount earned is negative 2.6. So people are having less of a lifestyle today than they had just 2-3 years ago as a result of just inflation, the silent killer for all of us. Okay. And so when you're looking at the E factor, right, the entrepreneur factor, one thing I want to say is probably if all these things would be summed up as we need to have something if you're going to be in business for yourself that is not just bricks and mortar, that can be portable. That, for example, when I first started this business, everything was done but with a hammer and chisel. It was really old school, right? Everything was paper and pen and all that. Nowadays, 100% of our business can be done electronically. I could literally be sitting on a beach, on a boat, anywhere in the world and run my business from a laptop. And since COVID, that's pretty much how things have transitioned. Now, we love having our live audience here today, and I love seeing people and shaking people's hands, and that's all actually extremely important to have that element. But you also have to have an element where you can be purely digital and allow yourself to have true freedom. Okay. And another aspect is credibility. If you just start in this business and you came from a totally different industry, that has nothing to do with the financial industry, again, you may think that, hey, I'm an imposter. I don't know anything about this stuff. But guess what? 100% you could learn. 100% chance, 100% you're going to be able to learn this. Okay, for one. But two, to be able to borrow credibility is incredibly important. We have a book out called How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker, written 4 years ago, right before the pandemic. And since its introduction, our founder wrote this book. 250 major TV shows, 100 million plus people have viewed this information. So, and certainly the person who invited you on today can share this with you in some of the interviews that were done. But anytime that you have something that has this kind of media presence, you're automatically borrowing credibility from someone who's already done it, right? Kind of pave the way so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay. And our whole business is around how money works. You have your own How Money Works website. You can have your own WealthWave website from day one with your picture on it, right? And so we teach people how you have the tools necessary to truly be successful in the business. And certainly the literacy, change your life, we have a ebook, change your life, change your literacy, change your literacy, change your life book that just came out. We have videos that are literally millions of dollars has been spent to build out the website that you didn't have to come up with $1 of your own money to do that. So and really looking at how you're going to be part of this story. This is the ebook I was just mentioning. Jump the gun there. Change your literacy, change your life, and you could there's a little QR code there if you want to grab that. Maybe you already read it, but this is again sharing stories of how we're impacting people's lives already with this mission. So I leave you with this here to close up. How we partner with someone. And by the way, everyone I think deserves a financial education. I think everyone should have access to the tools that millionaires get to use, that we could offer it to someone who, hey, I'm putting away my first $100 or $10 even, and be able to give them the same kind of tools. To me, that is something that is democratized this industry, and it deservedly so. Now, if you're someone who also sees that, hey, I'd like to explore being an entrepreneur, I haven't known where to go to do that, but I'd like to see what that looks like with you. There's a couple options here. One is you could start like many, spare time. You hang on to your full-time job. Don't take the risk yet, right? Generally speaking, someone who does that, when you are able to start replacing your income, like maybe a part-time level, then you could have maybe the gumption to say, you know what, if I just making the same amount of money with my part-time effort, what could I do if I put my full effort into this industry, into this business? And then those people can go full-time. Some people are able to make the leap full-time right away. Maybe you're already an entrepreneur and just looking for another business that you could start to build. However you want to look at partnering with us is totally fine. We'll always start with where you're at now. But what I would say is who you partner with, it makes a big difference, right? Who are the people you spend the most time with? If you write those 5 people down and ask yourself, how are these people contributing to my life, making me a better parent, father, business person, you'll be the average of those 5 people. And Jim Rohn, who's a well-known entrepreneur and speaker and coach, he said this years ago. And so who you spend your time with and who you build a business with, it makes a difference for your success, your reputation, how happy you are, right? We know a lot of people who make a lot of money who aren't very happy, right? So we want to have the values and all these things as well. And I'll say this to finally close here is whoever invited you down, you owe it to yourself to get your questions answered, right? And we'll have some questions for you as well to see if this is a good fit. Not everyone is ready to make the jump to being an entrepreneur, but we're happy to have that discussion with you. And so we look forward to hearing from you soon, and hopefully join us into one of our next sessions. Have a great rest of your day.